Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, True Crime Stories. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can hear more. Thanks for stopping by. Laurie Lynn Partridge went missing December the 4th, 1974. She was only 17 years old. Some of her belongings were found near 37th and Havana Street shortly after her disappearance. This happened in Spokane, Washington. She was a Ferris High School student, and she left school early that day, saying that she didn't feel well and was going to walk home. Laurie and her family had moved to Spokane only a few months prior to her disappearance. Authorities originally believed she left of her own free will. However, they now say foul play is suspected. Authorities say a witness saw Laurie at about 4:15 p.m. on the day she went missing. A white man in his 40s or 50s was nearby in a white truck. At least 4 different detectives had taken the lead over the past 5 decades. She's never been located, and DNA is not a factor because they can't find her body. There was no witness to her abduction, and that isn't going to help us. So she's walking home from school that day. She had told the people at the school that she didn't feel well and she was going to leave early to walk home. Did she really intend to walk home, or was she leaving school early that day to meet somebody? Is it possible that this man in this white truck had nothing to do with this and that he was just someone who happened to be nearby? Did she go somewhere to meet up with somebody? This was way before video cameras, the surveillance cameras, or cell phones, so there was no way to trace her movements. The Spokane County Sheriff's Office said that Laurie had tickets to a Beach Boys concert in her purse on the day she disappeared. They went to the Beach Boys concert to see if they saw her. They believe her tickets were used, but they never had any reports of her being sighted at the concert. Now, I would say that this concert was probably really crowded, and could they have picked her out of a crowd like that? They believe that she was most likely murdered, but they don't have any evidence of that. Somebody knows who took her, and they know what happened to her. I think we can all agree that she did not run away. I think that's standard knowledge. Laurie's sister, Taryn, said her family wants closure. It's worse not knowing. That's the worst thing. We really need to solve this one way or another. As of now, there are no suspects in the case. Laurie would be 67 years old today. She was described as a white female, 5 foot tall, with blonde hair and blue eyes. She had a very distinctive mole on her right cheek. She went missing on December the 4th, 1974, while walking home from school. She had tried to get a ride that day. She said she didn't feel well and she was leaving school early. In the 50 years following her sister's disappearance, 56-year-old Taryn Chambers always thought that there would be some answers by now. And this article is recent. This was dated 2024. Maybe she's been held captive, Chambers thinks, but she knows that that's not possible. And she knows that her sister went missing and probably something happened to her within a very short time of her going missing. But she sometimes will sit and wonder, is it possible that her sister's still alive out there someplace? Um, we never really felt like she was coming home, she said. We moved back to California, and I asked my mom, what if Laurie comes home? How will she find us? But she never did. Now, she left her high school at 12:30 p.m. complaining of having cramps. It wasn't too cold outside, but there was a slight drizzle falling that day. Now, this would have been a 2-mile walk from her parents' home, from the school to her home. She was last seen wearing a navy blue coat, a tan sweater, and tan plaid pants. She had on blue denim shoes and was carrying a brown leather purse that had a blue flower on the front. This was 1974. When she didn't come home or show up for her job that evening at the Lincoln Heights movie theater, her father and the other children went out looking for her. It was like she just disappeared off the face of the earth. There was nothing to go by. Of course, there were no cameras around back then. There was just nothing to go on, said the police. Law enforcement thought that she might have been a runaway because she missed living in California, and they thought maybe she had left to go back there. But their perception eventually changed. Now, one thing here is she had tickets to go to a concert a couple of days after this. She was going to go to a Beach Boys concert. Now, she had more than one ticket, so apparently someone else was supposed to go with her. These tickets were used, like I said before, unlike today, they could have gotten camera footage, and most of the tickets now that you buy when you go to a concert or an event are scanned. And they didn't have that back then. These were just physical tickets that were handed to the ticket taker as these people came in. Now, they said that police did send people to the concert to look around for Laurie, but they didn't see anyone they thought could have been her. The fact that Partridge was a young girl walking down the road alone, and she's never spoken to anyone again since this time, they believe it's possible that she was abducted by a stranger. But who had these tickets? Was it the person that took her, just happened to go through her purse and find these tickets and decide to go to this concert? Or any of these other people question, was any of her friends or schoolmates someone who knew she was leaving school that day? It was reported that a green Ford Pinto station wagon with California plates followed Partridge in the days before her disappearance. Police believe this could have been her ex-boyfriend, who was still living in California at the time. He wasn't a very nice guy, they said. He was the type of guy that felt like if Laurie broke up with him, then he wasn't going to let any other guys date her. And he did have a car like that, they said. So that's the biggest red flag and clue right there. Maybe the two of them did attend this concert together. Maybe he picked her up, took her somewhere, and the two of them rekindled their relationship and went to this concert. Maybe something happened to her after that. Another neighbor around Laurie's age came forward a couple of years later and says she thinks that she remembers seeing Partridge that day in a field with a man in a white truck. She said that that the girl was riding a horse, and she believed that it was Laurie. Now, serial killer Ted Bundy was notorious for abducting young women in the 70s. He was questioned about her disappearance, but he was known to have been in Salt Lake City at the time that she disappeared. Over the years, they have gotten some tips on Laurie. Only a few weeks before this article was written, a woman who came forward said that she wanted police to look into an unidentified woman from a database matching Laurie's description. And the police say they're not ruling that out. Now, I think maybe what this is something like Web Sleuths or the Doe Network, and some of these others have people who are unidentified, whether they are unidentified living people, mostly they're unidentified deceased. And she may have come across an unidentified deceased person on one of these websites, and she's come to the police saying she kind of matches Laurie's description. Could you look into her? And the police say that they're not going to rule that out. He says that this is a good tip worth following up on. The best bet of finding Laurie, the police say, is to continue to work with the medical examiner to determine if there are any unidentified bodies that can match DNA to Laurie. Sometimes we find people and her remains may be in California. If it's possible that her ex-boyfriend was the one who abducted her, took her back to California. He may have murdered her somewhere here in Spokane and dumped her body somewhere between there and his home in California. Now, Laurie's mom died in 2004 and her dad died in 2022. And her sister continues to search for her, continues to talk with the police and find out if they have come up with anything new. She continues to make phone calls and search pages and websites. And Laurie would be 67 years old today. She just asks if someone would please come forward to help the family. And if you have any information, you can contact the Spokane County Sheriff's Office at 509-477-2240. In 1977, 17-year-old Jerry Armstrong vanished. A lot of white guys didn't like it because Jerry was the quarterback for the football team, and they were a little bit jealous about that. The last time the Armstrong family saw Jerry was 2 days before Christmas. He had dinner with his family, and he attended a Christmas dance with his girlfriend at the National Guard Armory. Jerry drove his girlfriend home. Jerry and the car he was driving, a 1973 Pontiac Le Mans, has never been found. That night, my mom and dad got up at 12:30 looking for him because he was supposed to have been home by midnight. My mom automatically had this bad feeling and said something has happened to Jerry. The next day, the family reported him missing. His disappearance affected his entire family, especially his mother. She died at the age of 49. She died of a broken heart. Every day you could see it in her eyes. Every day she would just pray, "Lord, send my child home." Over the decades, Johnny and his family have heard different theories about what happened. Some believe Jerry Armstrong was murdered on the side of the road and that he was buried in a landfill. Another theory was that jury might have been mistaken for his older brother James, who was involved in a relationship with a white woman at the time, and a lot of people in the area did not like that. Now, the family believes that this was a race crime. They believe that whatever happened to their brother, it was either because he was a black football quarterback and some of the white players and parents of the white players were mad about that, or that he was mistaken for his brother who was dating a white woman at the time, and that someone targeted him because of that. Was he known to drink? I would ask that question. Did the girlfriend say, yes, he dropped me off at home at whatever time and he left? How long would it have taken him to get from her house where he dropped her off back to his house? Was there any lakes or anything, rivers or lakes between her house and his house? And he may have driven off of the highway into the water. The Armstrong family has called hundreds of people over the years looking for answers. But they also recently reached out to the FBI. So the family claims that they got a phone call from someone, random person, saying, tell these investigators to back off or you're next. And they threatened to kill the person on the phone. His sister Mary Armstrong said they just want answers. My dad is 86. Now, this story was written in 2019. So, if the father's still alive now, he would be 91. Johnny Armstrong believes someone knows what happened to his brother that night, but they're too afraid to come forward. He went missing on December the 23rd, 1977. He was a black male with black hair and brown eyes, 5'6" and about 150 pounds. He was 17 years old. He was last seen wearing a dark green suit with a yellow shirt and a green tie and black shoes. He was last seen in the Hernando, Mississippi area on December the 23rd. He borrowed his brother's white two-door 1973 Pontiac Le Mans and drove to a prom at the National Guard Armory. He took his girlfriend home, dropped her off, and has not been seen or heard from since. Now, I would also ask this question. Did he have a rival for this girlfriend? Did she have another man that maybe she had been dating before him and maybe someone was jealous over this? Or did she have brothers or her dad or someone in her family that maybe didn't like him and didn't want her to date him? And, what's the evidence of what happened to him when he arrived at her house? She says he dropped her off and she never seen him again. The vehicle he was driving has never been recovered. The car had red and black racing stripes and had a Mississippi license plate that was DAY 485. Now, his family and some of the other local people in the area believe that this was a race crime and that he was targeted by white supremacists. And they also believe that his case was a case of mistaken identity. They believe he was being mistaken for his older brother, James, who was dating a white woman and had gotten some bad comments and people giving him, a hard time over him dating this white woman. The family has criticized the manner in which the police handled the case. And investigators recently told the family that when they got the case file from the police, that there were files missing. So they believe that maybe somebody was covering something up. This was 1977 in Mississippi. And they have hired investigators to look into his case separate from the police. He went missing from Hernando, Mississippi. He's considered endangered missing. He would be 64 years old today. Now, his brother James, who some people believe he was mistaken for, his brother James died of a gunshot wound to the chest in 1984. His death was ruled a suicide, but his family says no. There was no way, and they believe that the police deliberately ruled this a suicide. They didn't want to investigate anybody. His brother had criticized, he had been one of the vocal people criticizing the police for the handling of the disappearance of his younger brother. So, and the current investigating officer said that valuable documents were missing from the police file. Jerry's mother died in 1987, but his brother is keeping the case going, hoping that they will find something. And not only are they investigating what happened to their brother, Jerry, who went missing that night, but the shooting death of their older brother, which was ruled a suicide. So the police are not considering that anything to investigate, but the family doesn't believe that. Were the two cases related? Did the brother that possibly did shoot himself, James, did he believe that he was the cause of his younger brother being murdered because of mistaken identity? Did he carry around guilt, thinking that his brother was targeted because people thought that it was him? If you have any information on this case, you can contact the DeSoto County Sheriff's Office at 662-469-3029. To wrap up this video, I think, personally, my thoughts on Laurie Partridge is it's possible that she may have ran away with this boyfriend. They said that he was 20 years old. Some people say that they had broken up, but others say that they were still talking to each other and had even talked about buying an engagement ring. Maybe she changed her mind and told him, I don't want to marry you and I don't want to date you anymore now that her family had moved away. Maybe he did follow her. They said that he did have a car that was similar to the one that witnesses described seeing in the area that day. Being the oldest daughter and having these younger siblings, I don't think she would have gone through her entire life without ever reaching back out to her family. So the possibility of a stranger abduction is still out there, but I think that this comes down to this boyfriend, and I don't know whatever happened to him. I couldn't find any information on him, who he was, if the police investigated him or went and talked to him. And so that's just kind of where her case stands, but I think that it has something to do with that relationship. I hope one day her family can find some answers. As for Jerry in Mississippi, it's possible that he was mistaken for his brother, and that whoever it was that was angry with his brother could have targeted him. And it's also possible that they targeted Jerry purposely because they wanted revenge on the brother. The football, him being the quarterback for the football team, that's a possibility. We've heard of that. They just did a documentary on ID Network about the cheerleader mom who supposedly hired a hit person to take out her daughter's rival. And so that's a possibility that someone targeted him. I don't know. It's possible that he may have ran off the road and into some water somewhere. Maybe one day his family also will get some closure. I find any more answers on any of these stories, I'll come back and do a follow-up. Thanks for watching.